Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another
Devo with Jimmy.
Today's Devo, we are going to be diving into the story of the Good Samaritan. If you want to follow along, this comes from Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. It says here that one day an authority on the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to receive eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" Jesus replied. "How do you understand it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. Love him with all of your strength and all of your mind," quoting Deuteronomy 6:5. "And love your neighbor as yourself," quoting Leviticus 9:18. Jesus answered, "You have answered correctly. Do that and you will live." But the man wanted to make himself look good. So he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Now Jesus could have just given an answer, but instead he uses a parable, a story, to tell us who is our neighbor. And he says some very interesting things in here to make his point. Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. Robbers attacked him. They stripped off his clothes and they beat him. Then they went away, leaving him almost dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road. When he saw the man, he passed on the other side. A Levite also came by. When he saw the man, he passed by the other side of the road too." Now, what's really important about this is that Jesus purposefully chose two different people as examples who passed on by. One being the priest, and two being the Levite. Now, the priest is just like any other religious leader that we know today, like a pastor, Pastor Mark or Pastor Christy. Can you imagine them just walking by someone who's almost dead on the side of the road? Or the Levite. In that day and age, a Levite was a descendant of the third son of Jacob, the same Jacob who stole his inheritance from his brother Esau, and the same Jacob who wrestled with the angel. The priest and the Levite were people of importance in this day and age. But Jesus does something even more important with the rest of the story. And Jesus continues, "But a Samaritan came to the place where the man was. When he saw him, he had compassion for him. He went to him, poured olive oil and wine on his wounds, and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey. He brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins. He gave them to the owner of the inn and said, 'Take care of him. When I return, I will pay you back for the extra expense that it may have brought upon you.'" Now, what's really interesting here is that Jesus uses the Samaritan specifically and purposefully. Because in this day and age, Samaritans and Jews did not get along. They were complete enemies. One would even say they might hate each other. But what Jesus does here is he uses the example of a Samaritan as the enemy to be the hero of this story. Jesus is subverting the expectations of who the good guys are. Now, after Jesus tells the story, he comes back and asks this man, "Which of the 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by robbers?" And the authority of the law replied, "The one who found compassion on him." And Jesus told him, "Go and do as he did." Now, we are no strangers to that feeling of hate and anger. I know that we like to claim we as Christians, we don't hate anybody. But unfortunately, I see plenty of it out on our social media pages. And so today I want to do a short exercise of a parable translation. This is something that we do in youth group all the time, but we take a parable that Jesus has told and we try and translate it into today's day and age. And so what we try and do is imagine, what if Jesus came to our town of Waterford or wherever you're from and told this same story? Now, he clearly wouldn't use the story of a Samaritan because we don't have Samaritans. And so I ask, who would be the Samaritan of your story? Who is it in your life that you might dislike or even hate? Maybe it's a specific individual. Maybe it's someone you work with. Maybe it's even a family member. Or maybe it's literally your neighbor next door. Or might it be a group of people? Could it be a Democrat or a Republican? Might it be a protester or a police officer? Or could it be somebody that we might deem an illegal alien of this country? And I want you to think about this critically. This is between you and God. Who is the Samaritan in your story? And if we can be honest with ourselves and identify that individual or that group of people, we can then begin to see what Jesus is really talking about here. Jesus knows our hearts. Jesus knows the anger that we have towards others. Because whoever the Samaritan is for you, Jesus calls us to love that person as our neighbor. And I know it might be a hard pill to swallow, because we as Christians are called to something greater than any country that we live in, than any political views that we may have. Jesus calls us to not only identify those who we may not like or even hate, but to also take it a step further and to love those people. Every human being is our neighbor, and we are called to love them, especially the ones that we don't see eye to eye with.